Before we get into the episode, I am thrilled to announce that the EntreMD Business School is open for enrollment. The EntreMD Business School is the only school of its kind for physicians who want to build 6, 7, and multiple 7-figure businesses. Over the last 2 years, we have had hundreds of doctors go through the school with unbelievable results. Some of them run brands, some of them run private practices, some of them are coaches, some have other kinds of service-based businesses or product-based businesses. And we've had people come in and cross the 6-figure milestone, cross the 7-figure milestone, cross the multiple 7-figure milestone. You will be in a place where you'll get the coaching, the community, the accountability that you need to thrive as an entrepreneur, especially in the times that we're in. So maybe you've been following me for a while. Maybe you've been getting so much out of the EntreMD podcast and you've been wondering, how can I work with Dr. Una and the community more? Well, this is your chance. Come join us in the EntreMD Business School. It is application only. So go to entremd.com/business to turn in your application. I cannot tell you how many doctors have made statements like this. I recovered my investment in the first week. I recovered my investment in my bank account in the first 90 days. This is the best investment I've made in myself ever. I want you to have that kind of story, not just a story of building a great business that serves a lot and earns a lot, but having a business that gives you the freedom to live life on your terms. So don't wait any longer. entremd.com/business. And now for the episode. Take charge of your children's education beyond just the academics, but take charge of their education. That may look like homeschooling them. That may be look like extra things you do with them after homeschool, right? It's more so taking charge. So the schools are there to help you. The schools are not doing the work. Hi, docs. Welcome to the EntreMD podcast, where it's all about helping amazing physicians just like you embrace entrepreneurship so you can have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on your terms. I'm your host, Dr. Una. What would make somebody who runs multiple businesses, runs multiple podcasts, writes multiple books a year, runs a whole business school, what would make this person homeschool their kids, right? So I'm going to talk about today why I chose to homeschool my kids and then answer a number of questions that have been coming up a lot from you. And so if we've never met before, I am Dr. Una. I am the founder of EntreMD and I help doctors build profitable businesses so they have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on their terms. Okay. In the last week or so, I've had a lot of questions around homeschooling and I figured, you know what, I would just go ahead and, share my journey. I want to start off by saying I do not recommend homeschooling. And the reason why I want to share the journey is you can hear the why, you can hear the strategy behind it. You can choose if you want to do that in a homeschool setting, if you want to do that, in the context of what you already have. So I'm not necessarily recommending homeschooling. I am just recommending that you take full ownership of your kids' education. And I'll show you how I've done it, and you can model and paste, or you can edit and paste, or, whatever it is you need to do. So I started homeschooling my kids when my daughter was 4 and my son was 2. And it really was accidental, because I had put my daughter in pre-K and she came back and she's like, "Mommy, I'm a single lady." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, you are a single lady, right?" And then she said it 2 or 3 times. And I was like, okay, what is she saying? And then she comes, with the whole dance routine. Now she's 4, right? So there's a limit to the dance routine, and started singing All the Single Ladies by Beyonce. And I'm like, hang on. I'm like, wait a whole minute. Where did you get that from? And so she said, my teachers played it for me at school, and that's the song we watch and things like that. And so we went to the school. They're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, da-da-da-da-da. And everybody has their own perspective. But for me, I'm like, she's 4. I don't need any single ladies, anything going on right now. And so we pulled her out. We had this lady from our church who we had watch her. Okay, so this was like a babysitter type situation. The only thing is that this lady was a school teacher and she had homeschooled her kid. And so she started teaching her and my son, who was 2 at the time. And she's, old school Southerner. So she really took her time to teach them. And I think that was where my hand was forced almost. I'm not saying she forced my hand. It's just the circumstance. My hand was forced to start homeschooling because here my daughter is, she's 4. She was 4 at the time when she started this. And then, she's 5, but at 5, my goodness, like, of course, she's writing her name. She knows all her numbers. She's doing simple math and, she's writing almost sentences, if you will. And I said, okay, like, would you guys consider putting her in first grade? And they're like, absolutely not. And then my son had a late birthday. He missed the cutoff, which was September. His birthday was in December. And so for him, they're like, well, he's not going to be able to start kindergarten till a year later. And I'm like, well, he's already doing so much. Like, what am I going to do? Shut off his brain? Because again, he could do simple math, all of these things going on. So anyway, we checked with a number of schools. We're like, will you test them? Would you do anything? Private school, public school, all of that? Everybody said no. I was like, well, I guess they're home. So I was like, well, we'll just homeschool, because my son, what am I going to do with him? So we started homeschooling from there. That was the beginning of that journey. And when I say homeschooling, you may have this picture of, we get up in the morning and our school time was from 9 to 2 with a lunch at 12 and things like that. It was nothing like that because at that time, I was working 4 days a week, seeing patients in my pediatric practice and then running the practice. And my husband and I pastoring a church. So weekends were not like, it wasn't like, thank God it's Friday because we still had work over the weekends. And so homeschool looked like I would get back from work and I'll tell the kids, I'm like, okay, so listen, okay, we can work from 6 to 8. And we can do all our work then, and you can play all day the next day till I get back from work. And so to them, it was an absolutely amazing deal. And so from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., they would go hard, do their work, complete everything, and then we'll call it a day. And I would go do whatever else I had to do. And, they would prepare for bed. And of course, they had the next day to play till I got back from work. So really, we worked evenings. And I think it was a really valuable lesson in delayed gratification for them, right? Like, because, they're just like, okay, if we work now, we can play later. But anyway, that's the way that worked. So we did that, I want to say for almost 2 years. And then I met a lady. So this was very interesting. This was at a Barnes and Nobles and she was checking out, so I was sitting at a table. She was checking out and she was like, oh, I want to get this, book. I teach 3rd graders. I teach at a school for kids who are homeschooled. And I was like, wait a minute, what did she just say? And so at this time, I was still an introverted introvert who was socially awkward and shy. But, I summoned up courage and I went to her and I was like, I couldn't help but overhear you talking about teaching 3rd grade, but teaching kids who are homeschooled. Like, what does that mean? And she's like, yeah, the way the school is set up, they come to school 3 days a week and, I work with them and all of those things. And 2 days a week, they would go home, they would do their work from home and all of those things, but they get graded, they get transcripts and all of those kind of things. So I'm thinking, ooh, this is structure. This is fantastic. Like they'll have an actual transcript. At least the teacher is taking a look at them. I don't know what I'm doing and things like that. And so I asked her where the school was, and the school was out actually a 45-minute drive from me. And so when she said, I was like, okay, that's interesting, but I saved all her information. It took me almost another year before I was like, okay, fine, we'll do this. It's a bit of a commute, but we'll do it because I don't know what I'm doing with these kids. And so we started sending them there. And actually I made a deal with her and I was like, listen, you can have them for the other 2 days. I'll pay the extra. Let them just do their schoolwork with you there. And so they would go there 5 days a week. And so my older 2 did that. The younger ones, when it was time, when they turned 4, they joined her and things like that. And we did that for a number of years, 2 years before the pandemic. So this would be 2018, I guess, 2018. And at this time, my 3rd was in 2nd grade. So the way it works in Georgia, maybe it works in other places that way as well. After 2nd grade, even if they were quote unquote too young, if you will, for their class, they'll let them retain whatever class that is. And so when my 3rd was in 2nd grade, I was like, okay, 45-minute commute, that's a lot. We're going to put you in private school and you guys will be able to retain your grades, except my last one. We're like, you'll be fine. So we put them in private school, and they did that for about 2 years. And private school was great. They all settled in. My third is very social. So she loved being amongst a new group of friends and all of those things. And so we did that. And then after about 2 years, I had this aha. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I want you to see like the progression of the journey, but also the reason behind it, right? And so I remember thinking, I said, you know what? I'm a physician. I have arguably one of the best educations in the world, if you will. I'm a whole physician. And I said, but medical school, like my journey to becoming a doctor, did not prepare me for personal finances, did not prepare me for leadership, did not prepare me for entrepreneurship, did not prepare me to be this person who was all in on personal development so I could become whoever I needed to be and things like that. And I just thought, I was like, you know what? I was in my 30s when I started learning all these things. And when I look at the life I live now, the fact that I have control over my time, the fact that I've built many, very successful businesses, the fact that I have so many mentees, my life has had so much impact. I understand finances to a degree, and all of this stuff was after the fact. I'm like, real wealth is not the money you leave your kids, right? Because they can blow it like in no time. They can blow it. But real wealth is transferring whatever is in you that created the wealth. That's real wealth. So of course we're going to leave wealth, right? We're going to leave an inheritance, but the real inheritance is the wisdom, is the strategies, is the mindset, is the knowledge that created the wealth. I want to leave them stuff, but before stuff, I want to leave them the thing that creates the stuff so they can always create their own stuff. So I'm here thinking about this and I'm like, there's such a gap in what we call education. And I was like, what if I could have them have what I consider full education? So for me, what that would look like is, okay, there's a traditional education, there's the business education, there's leadership education, there's faith. So for me, I was like, I started really being serious with my walk with God in the year 2000, right? Like, so this is 24 years ago. And I'm like, my goodness, like there's so much I could teach them. There's so much I know about the application of faith in the marketplace and faith for your everyday life and faith for peace of mind and all of these things. I'm like, it's so much, but do I want them to just turn 30 like me and start figuring all this out, or do I want to teach them? So I consider faith as part of it. I consider home management part of it. One is because I want them to be able to run their homes and all of those things, but it's a little selfish too. I just want my house clean. So I add it to the curriculum. But when I look at that, like these 5 areas, I'm like, okay, this is what I consider full education. And so I talked to my husband. I said, listen, like they're all a year ahead of, based on their ages and all of those things. Like, what if I pull them out of school and we did this as an experiment, for a year? Like, what if we were able to give them a broader education? What if we were able to cover all of these things? And so I was like, if you're game, I'm game. Let's do it. And so he's like, yeah, go for it. Cause I was like, they're a year ahead. What's the worst that can happen? Like the experiment doesn't work and they'll be on par and we'll be fine. So I talked to them. I was like, this is what we're going to do. My older two, they're really amazing because they could have had a whole lot of kickback, but I explained to them the reason why I wanted to do it and how I thought it would be beneficial to them. So they're like, okay, like, let's do it. They didn't give me too much kickback, which was really great. Cause again, for me, it was an experiment. I was like, I don't know, but let's see. So we pulled them out and then we started this whole system, and I'll explain how it plays out in a little bit. But as far as the curriculum goes, the school they were a part of, you could do dual enrollment, and they did dual enrollment through Liberty University. And so when it was time to pull them out, I, to be clear, was not going to teach them math and chemistry and all of that. That is like 1000% not my jam at all. And so we enrolled them in Liberty University Online Academy. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying that's the one we picked because that's the one they were going to use for dual enrollment anyway. So I just piggybacked off of that. And so that's the one that we picked, enrolled them in their classes, found out that, in about 3-4 hours or so, they were able to be done with their academics. And so we had time to do all the other aspects of it. And so that's what we did. And, they were able to keep their, grade ahead and all of those kind of things. So what we would do, because they had started off homeschooling, they're fairly independent learners. And so, for me, it was really a case of, mama wants A's, so give me A's. That was really my contribution to their academic education, right? And so they worked off my home office, where if you're watching this on YouTube, where you see me with the bookshelf behind me, bookcases behind me and all, that's where they would do their work. And they relegated me to some other part of the house. And so I would do my work. So I'm literally sitting across from the room where they are. They're doing their work, and I just come see how they're doing with grades, answer any questions they may have. And that played out really well. And then I was able to have them more involved. So when I let me talk about the different aspects. So for the traditional academics, they had Liberty University Academy. So that's what they were doing. For business, I had them more involved in my business. That could look any kind of way, right? It wasn't a standard curriculum, like totally mapped out. Like I would have business books that I would have them read. So they'll read the business books. I would have them more involved in the business. So my daughter, for instance, understands how to work Kajabi, upload, the videos I need uploaded and things like that. She knows how to work all my Zoom stuff. When I would do retreats, sometimes I'll have her come speak, whether she's doing the announcements, I would have her do the registration for the event and things like that. At the last EntreMD Live, they were the ones who manned the cameras. They were the ones who did the photography. And, so I had them, it was really hands-on. And, when I started doing YouTube, I had them do a lot of things with the YouTube. My daughter creates a lot of reels. So there are all these things, that we have them do that's hands-on. When I have brainstorming sessions, I would bring them into it. And so, for instance, I made up an event. I said, okay, what if we did this event? And in this event, we created 2 million in revenue. What would we need to do to create 2 million in revenue? And, we started going one category after the other, doing the math, brainstorming, all of that till we got to 2 million, right? And they're the ones who are coming up with how to do that. So really involving them in that. When I would go for business trips, I would take them with me. Sometimes the host would let them in the room. And so we had this event, and, in this program, people were doing over 1 million in revenue all the way to 20 million in revenue. Those were the kind of entrepreneurs who were in the group. And I told the lady, I said, hey, my kids are here as well. And she's like, oh, bring them into the room. And so they got to be in the room. They got to network with the people who were in the room. They got to hear people talk about, celebrating their first $300,000 month. And there's just something about being in the room, right? It tells you belong there. It shows you what is possible. Some people can't even imagine 300,000 a year, but they're like, oh, 300,000 a month. I guess that's what people do. And it's just really, really amazing, right? And so as far as the business angle, that's what we do with that. With the leadership, I use the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell as kind of the curriculum for that, because if you've read John Maxwell's books, his books are kind of heavy, right? Like you don't just breeze through them. They're dense, if you will. They're books you want to read the chapter, workshop the chapter, and then go to the next chapter. The books are kind of like that. And so for me, I'm like, I'm okay if it takes them a year or 2 years to kind of work through every chapter and actually taking action on it. And so that's what we use as the curriculum. And then I put them in positions where they have opportunities to lead. So my husband and I, we pastor a church. And so they have an opportunity, in the youth church to do some leadership, whether that's at some point it was leading a small group, some other parts, my daughter's leading the worship team and all of these things. And so they get to practice that, right? Because, once you start leading people, it's like a lot of pain. They don't want to follow, or they like so many kinds of things happen. I mean, that's just what it is. But then they now have a curriculum to practice, and I can coach them through it and all of that. So again, very hands-on, right? So they have those opportunities as well. With faith, my husband does the bulk of that, because I have a mentorship, a prayer meeting I lead every morning. And so while I'm doing that, he's doing, they call it Daddy's Hour. It's so amazing. But then he's teaching them principles from the scripture, scriptures and all of those things. So, and they talk, there's nothing that's off topic. They talk about everything. And so they're getting that every morning, 5 days a week, right? Which if you think about it, that's really powerful. And then the home management, it's, practicing keeping the place clean, decluttering a certain part of the house, going shopping. Like, so for instance, I don't go shopping, right? And even if I were to be part of that process at all, what would happen is I'll have my daughter make a shopping list, the things she wants to get based on the menu she wants to, she wants the kids to have. And then I would drive them to the store and sit in the parking lot, give her the card. She'll go shop, come back, give me the receipt and stuff like that. So she's practicing all of that. So you have the traditional academics, you have the business, you have the leadership, you have the home management, you have the faith, like they're getting all of that. And so the first year that we did it, for me, it was just so beautiful to see. They were doing really well. My daughter's all A's, my son A's and B's for the academic side of things. The business, they started playing around with their own businesses. My daughter took up baking and she was selling those. They would do things like that, generate income that way and all of that. And then they were involved in the business. Leadership, you could see their confidence go through the roof, learn how to work with people, lead people, influence people and things like that. Very confident in their own skin. My daughter didn't really like being different from people and all of those, but she just had this unbelievable level of confidence in who she was. And she was okay being different, being her authentic self. It was just so magical to see. So we did that. My younger two, they're now 9 and 10. And so the last school year was their last school year in the private school. They recently just started the homeschool. So now we have 4 kids in homeschool, right? And so the adaptation for that is, seeing that, okay, I've done this experiment, the experiment worked. I like the results that I'm getting. And I decided to pull the younger two to join the older two, rename the school, and we call it the Unachukwu Legacy Project. And really, because that's our legacy is transferring everything that's made us who we are and helped us get the results we get into them. That's a real legacy, not leaving them stuff like properties and things like that. So the Unachukwu Legacy Project, but because there's 4 of them, I made the decision to bring on a team member. And this person is not necessarily a teacher, but can teach them some stuff. But this is somebody who is an administrator, somebody who has strong administrative skills, because I have a full plan for the school. Right? I have what I want to have in each of these aspects. I want them to practice reading a book a week. Like, let's talk about how powerful this is for a moment. If my 10-year-old reads a book a week, right? And let's say she reads, for easy math, she reads 50 books a year, and she does this till she's 20, she would have read 500 personal development books. She would have read 500 personal development books at the age of 20. That will be like a 60-year-old in a 20-year-old's body, right? And so there are things that I want done. And so I know somebody's going to ask this question. So for my 10-year-olds, the books that I would pick for personal development for them, what we started off with were John Gordon's books. John Gordon writes books like The Energy Bus, Training Camp, The No Complaining Rules. He kind of writes like Ken Blanchard, who wrote Who Moved My Cheese, in the sense that they're story form, but with really powerful business lessons and things like that in them. So for them, they're avid readers. And so they would read those because they're story form. So that's what I usually start with for the younger ones. For the older ones, they can read those and any other thing that I throw at them. The administrator's job is to make sure that all the components of the school, the structure of the school is being followed, and the kids have accountability and all of those kind of things, and, watching their grades day to day, all of that. Like, so that's that person's job. The person is not necessarily teaching per se. Say for my son, for instance, he would love, my son is a 14-year-old. He will get all his work done, but he may take an hour, 2 or 3 longer just because, right? And so I want to train him on speed, right? And not to say he's speeding through his work and not understanding, but just that discipline to do what you're doing until you're done with it, right? I want him to build that, but I'm not going to be able to follow him around or hold him accountable to make sure that happens. So that's part of what the administrator will be doing. So we brought an administrator on. At the time of this recording, she actually starts tomorrow. So I'm super excited about that. But we got someone who's really good. Administration is her strong suit. We've worked together loosely in a different capacity. And so this is going to be really amazing. And so I'm looking forward to this school year. They've already started and, just to see what that brings. But I'm excited to travel now with 4 of them as opposed to 2 of them for my business trips and whatever else I need to do. I had this fun idea, like, what if we did a trip a month and you guys got to, do your schoolwork from 12 different states, right? Because one of the things we've tried to do since they're not in a traditional school system is we've tried to make it really cool for them, right? So we do quite a bit of travel. They get different kinds of experiences. Like, for instance, their peers are in school and we took off to Europe for 2 weeks while their peers were in school because we can travel off peak because, we can do whatever, whenever, we have that freedom. And so, we try to do things like that. It's been a really good journey for us. For them, they're a lot more mature, because they are in a homeschool setting and they're not just with their peers, but they're with all kinds of people from all kinds of ages. It's interesting to see how they're able to relate so well with people from all age groups. In fact, my daughter's 16th birthday party, I found it very fascinating. She organized this party by herself. Okay. She planned it out. She just told us what the budget was and planned it out and did everything. But it was very interesting to me that at 16, she invited both her grandmothers, so my mother and my husband's mother. She invited her parents, so she invited us to her party. She invited her loose, like, aunties and uncles, right? So these are people maybe from church and stuff like that who'd mentored her in one way or another. She invited her teachers. She invited her friends. She invited her sisters and her sisters' friends. So there were so many generations in one room, and she rocked it like a star, and I mean, it was absolutely amazing. But they're so comfortable with adults. They're so comfortable having conversations with adults and things like that. So, that's been really powerful. Watching the skills that they're developing has been really powerful. So we're very excited about it. And I'm excited to see the way this year goes. I'm going to answer these questions, like really quickly because it comes up quite a bit. Socialization is one. For us, what we've done is we've built our own village. That's what we did. So church is a huge part of it. So they have a lot of friends, like outside of a school setting, they have a lot of friends through church. My sister has 3 kids and they're pretty close. Sometimes actually I would send them to my sister's house for a week. And you've heard me talk about I don't cook, I don't clean, and all of that stuff. My sister loves to cook. Okay. And so I would tell her, okay, lasagna, make sure Cheta is my first, make sure she learns, how to make a lasagna and all that stuff, like while she's there. So we do that. And then we go on a lot of trips and, they make a lot of friends that way. So socialization, we think they're okay with that. And my house is, oh my goodness, my house is me, my husband, my 4 children, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, my mother. Like it's a full house, right? And then all the guests who come and all those things. So they get a lot of socialization. People ask about the curriculum. To be honest with you, I did not do a huge hunt for a curriculum. I just went off the one that their school would have used for dual enrollment, and I just picked that, and it's worked for us. So we've just left it alone. The third thing people ask about is I can't do this by myself. Again, you may need to do it in a modified way, like I did when I started, and they did school in the evening and they played during the day. You can also recruit somebody to help you. For me, because of what I'm trying to do, and there are 4 of them, yes, I brought on this administrator. But for you, it could look like you have access to someone who's a teenager or a young college kid who's very responsible, who's doing really well in school, and you can pay them. You can pay them to work for 3 hours with them 2 or 3 times a week, and they will get so much done. And then you can pick up where they left off. There's so much creativity there, but bringing in a team would make a huge difference. And so I'll advise you to bring in a team as soon as you can, but really understand that there is a lot of flexibility with it, so you can make it work for you if that's what you want to do, right? So again, I'm not recommending or not recommending. I'm just telling you what I did, but I will tell you this is what I recommend. Our children, I feel such a sense of responsibility towards my kids because I think about the fact that I've worked with people There are people in the EntreMD Business School who have gone from employee to multiple seven figures in revenue in less than 3 years. Like, just think about the level of transformation somebody would need to go through to pull that off. And I'm like, but this person, of course there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, but maybe they're on a call with me once or twice a week, then a Facebook book group where they can ask questions, and they have my IP and all that they have access to. I'm like, if they can have that much, transformation, how much more my kids who are with me at home? Like, I may end up being known as a really great coach or consultant or educator or whatever, but I want that impact to be even more, right? With my kids, right? And so I want to be able to put in them everything that's made me who I am. And that becomes their floor. And then they can then build on that, whatever it is that they want. I don't necessarily want them to be me, but I want them to have all the tools I have. And then they can use it in whatever way is authentic and makes sense to them, right? I just want them empowered. Understanding that that is the real wealth. My advice to you would be, take charge of your children's education, like beyond just the academics, but take charge of their education. That may look like homeschooling them. That may not look like homeschooling. That may be look like extra things you do with them after homeschool, right? It's not homeschooling. It's more so taking charge. So the schools are there to help you. The schools are not doing the work. You know what I mean? Like, they help us. So, okay, you're taking care of this piece. I want to make sure this piece is happening, that piece is happening. That's what I would really highly recommend, because as entrepreneurs, this is for entrepreneurs, right? For entrepreneurs, this is the way we create generational wealth. There is the piece of passing on property and money and things like that and funds. But the biggest part of it is giving them what made you the kind of person who could produce this, right? That's the part that I strongly recommend that you own, because it will make all the difference. I want you to kind of take this and kind of look at the education they're getting, look at what's important to you, look at what's important to your family, and make some edits along the way. If you have questions, I created a post about this in the EntreMD Facebook group. So if you're not in that group, just go to Facebook, type in EntreMD Physicians in Business. It will pull it up. And then, you can just go ask your questions. I'll be happy to answer it and support you. Because the only thing better than becoming everything you know you can be is empowering your kids to do the same. And for some of you, it may not be your biological children. Maybe they're people in your life and you want to transfer this. This is like one of the best things that you can do for them. Okay. So leave them the how-to, and then leave them some wealth. Okay. I'm really rooting for every single one of us, because the EntreMD Business School has been around for over 4 years at this point. And there has never been a call, never been a call where a child did not show up on somebody's screen on Zoom. It has never happened. We actually have a name for them. We call them EBS Junior, right? And it is so funny, because sometimes the parents will tell me, well, I was discouraged about something, and my kids will be like, well, what will Dr. Una say? Right? And there are people who are like in the middle of a dilemma, and their husband's like, well, what will your EBS people say? And some people, they have their kids saying, don't quit. Or some other people, they have their kids like, fake selling, like they're selling things, or they're showing up on YouTube, on their fake YouTube channel. And I know like what is happening with the EntreMD Business School is so magical. The level of transformation, the kinds of businesses the doctors are building, the kinds of businesses they're going on to build. I tell them a lot. I'm like, you guys don't know this, but many of you are going to be serial entrepreneurs. Many of you are going to build businesses that can function without you, and then start going after creating disruptions in industries. Like, I know it, like I know my name, but I still think that the generation after the people in the EntreMD Business School now are the people who are really gonna knock our socks off. Like, I think about my kids. I think about the kids of the doctors who are in the school, and I think they're gonna make what we do look like a child's play. It's not gonna look like what we do maybe, but it's gonna be their way of doing it, but it's gonna be so wild, so wild. And that could be your story too, really. That what I did was amazing, but my kids, oh my goodness. It doesn't have to look like what we do, but we will be so much more powerful, so much more impactful. And we would have given them the leg up to really do something special in the world. So that's where we're going. And one of the ways of triggering that is taking everything that has made you who you are and installing that in your kids. And so I am rooting for you. And I am so excited for you, the physician entrepreneur. But believe me when I say I'm so much more excited about what's going to happen with the generation that comes after you. So go get this work done. If you have questions, post in the group. I'm happy to answer them. And I'll see you on the next episode of the EntreMD podcast.